This is Seventh Generation Warfare, and I am your current host, John Nelson. In this episode, we will be looking at divorce, a wonderful topic. I shouldn't use sarcasm. I apologize. It's a big topic. It's prevalent in society, and some of you listening may or may not have been divorced in the past. That's not really the issue. It's how you have handled it or how you will handle it that will make all the difference in your seventh generation warfare. So, as long as we can agree that divorce is not ideal, then I think we can build off from there. And I think since people do not go into marriage saying until not satisfied, this marriage is good until not satisfied. They go into a marriage saying until death do us part. That their goal that they later failed to live up to was to stay with the person for their entire life. And I think a lot of times when it comes to divorces, the writing's kind of on the wall before it starts because the people did not have the tools to understand how to be part of a mature relationship from the very beginning. They were not equipped with the emotional maturity or whatever to be part of the relationship, and so they didn't really know what they were getting themselves into. It's not necessarily that somebody dramatically changed while in the relationship. I think that's actually far less common. So being able to do that self reflection and learning, but also why are people getting into lifelong commitments with people when they don't actually understand or have the tools to be able to see it to its end? And I think that's part of this cyclical dysfunction that we seek to resolve in seventh generation warfare. Like so many things, we want to pass on the positive lessons to our children, make sure they are not reliving our mistakes. So if you are divorced, it is a great opportunity to teach your kids and all future generations that come how to avoid that pitfall. So I hope you'll enjoy this one, and I hope that it gives you some good perspective on the subject. Before we get in, and I know I'm about to discuss the topic of divorce in great length, but I have a bit of advice that was given to me by, I think it was an aunt and an uncle, and they told me just take the word divorce out of your vocabulary. If the word is not in there, if it's not something you ever think as an option, then you won't do it. And by and large, it's probably good advice for most people because I think a lot of divorce these days is dissatisfaction of some sort or another, and not actual physical or emotional abuse. So maybe just take divorce out of your vocabulary after after I talk about divorce and you listen to me talk about divorce, of course. So, best case scenario for seventh generation warfare is you get divorced when you don't have any children. And that, from a seventh generation warfare perspective, isn't that big of a deal. And in fact, since seventh generation warfare is about securing the will of our children, and you need children in order to secure their will, there could be a time or way in which seventh generation warfare actually promoted the idea of divorce so you could find somebody who you could procreate with, but it's really a dick move to divorce somebody because they can't bear children for you. So I am in no way encouraging that. I just want to put it out there that there is a logical path that could lead there, but don't divorce somebody just because you later find out they can't have your children. There's many ways you can become useful in seventh generation warfare if you yourself can't have children with your spouse, and being a great aunt and uncle would be a good example of that, or just helping out with siblings or anything else. Also, if you get divorced, say from your first partner, get remarried, and then later have kids with a second partner, you will need to explain to them at some point, unless you just aren't open with them any kind of way, but I hope you can be open up with your children about everything that happened in your life. That's part of seventh generation warfare. So they don't relive your mistakes. You have to be able to tell them what your mistakes were. You're going to need to be able to explain to them why you were previously divorced. So you're going to have to do that self work, that sixth generation warfare, and understand where the you went wrong within yourself, that you got into a relationship that led to divorce. Also, the other aspect that is negative about getting divorced when you don't have kids is that you are contributing in some way to the overall acceptance of divorce in society, and don't deceive yourself about that you are making it, even if you go around talking about how it's unfortunate, you're still promoting the use of the concept divorce. So you are adding to the decay of family and family values. And you should correct that before getting into your next relationship. And I don't see an instance, even if your ex is truly a abusive piece of garbage, there's never really a good time to play victim. You get divorced and you want to say, boo-hoo, I was in a poor situation. It's not good. Just understand you put yourself there. If you were, unless it was part of an arranged marriage, or unless you were a child when you agreed to marry, which isn't legal, if you are claiming to be an adult when you got married in the first place, don't claim to be a victim when that marriage ends. Take ownership of it, no matter how it turns out, and that will undo a lot of the wrong that your divorce has done for society. If you can own it and communicate where you went wrong to all of society, not just your future children, you'll be doing the world a better service. So now, if you have children and you get divorced, this is the point of this video, and this is a very different story. Worst case scenario, your children are young when you get divorced. And in most instances, this will mean they're going to get split up between two homes. Now, what are you communicating to your children if you get divorced and they spend, weekdays with mommy and weekends with daddy, or whatever the arrangement is? Well, you're communicating to your children that your ex is toxic and you can't stand them, but yet you still expect your children to have to put up with your ex. So, if they are in fact that toxic, you're communicating to your children that you can't protect them from a toxic person. Now, if you think they're toxic, the kids may or may not find them toxic, in which case you're having another problem of why now the kids' sense of reality is different from that of the parents, of like, no, I think this parent is a great person, and my other parent, who I also think is a great person, is saying that this person is toxic. I don't know what a toxic person means then, right? So, but if they are actually toxic and the kid still has to be exposed to them, then the kid is saying, well, I'm stuck with one toxic parent and my other parent doesn't give a shit to protect me from the toxic parent. So that's not good either. Or the parent's not toxic, in which case you're communicating to your children that breaking the family is an acceptable thing to do because I'm not satisfied. If the person's not toxic, if it's okay for your kids to be around them, why can't you just stomach the little dissatisfaction that you'll get, or eat the differences, or learn, or better yet, learn to coexist in a meaningful way, instead of breaking the family. So in that instance, the family structure itself is of such little value that it's able to be broken due to lack of satisfaction, and that's not good. So with these perspectives in mind, you're not modeling healthy relationships, commitment, and growth. If the person's not truly toxic and abusive, there is ways to work together through commitment and growth potential to figure out your difference and to model that for your children. And so if you don't take these opportunities when they're afforded to them, what you'll be starting your children at a severe disadvantage when it comes to navigating their own relationships, because they know that divorce, you can't say what they'll think, but it's reasonable to assume that they will think divorce is an acceptable thing. That they might be emotionally backed into that corner because of the things I just listed above. What would it mean? Can they truly accept that mommy and daddy, don't care about the family enough they're just slightly unhappy or inconvenienced by each other, and that's worth breaking up the family? Well, the easiest way for them to cope with that is to say that family's not really a thing or worth protecting in the first place, and it absolutely is. Moving on, if your children are grown and you get divorced, this raises a whole different series of problems. On the one hand, it's good that you at least stuck it out throughout their childhood. But what is that really worth if the divorce comes later? It might seem like it's better, but I don't know that it is. Because worst case scenario, they spent their entire childhood listening to you fight and arguing with each other. In which case you spent their entire childhood modeling dysfunctional relationships, which now they have to figure that out in their own sixth generation warfare. Or best case scenario, you hid your issues from them, but this is going to mess them up another way. Because if they thought the family was all hunky-dory and there was no major issues, they thought it was a healthy relationship, they were probably using your relationship as a model for what they wanted to engage in their own relationships when they get to that age. So if they're grown, say they're young 20s or something, and you divorce, they now might not have any concept of what a healthy relationship should look like. They thought mommy and daddy had this decent or good relationship. Now they're getting out there into the dating pool and looking for potential spouses themselves, and the example they were given throughout their entire life just seemingly just falls apart for no reason. How would that screw you up if you were exposed to that? Well, if I'm not looking for that, then what am I looking for, right? So that can be extremely disorienting in its own way. So, as you can see, there's no real good way through divorce, which is why seventh generation warfare fighters, as I was saying in the beginning, need to really focus on securing healthy relationships from the beginning. Don't think of it when your marriage is on the rocks. Think of it well before you get married. And have that concept of what kind of values you need to find in the spouse, and what self-growth you need to have done before getting married in order to secure that healthy marriage. And also, as a seventh generation warfare fighter, it also encourages us to assist our children to find healthy relationships in any way that is appropriate. Arranged marriages are not appropriate because it undermines their will. But aside from arranged marriages, there's a lot of things you can do as a parent to help talk about relationships they're going into, maybe give subtle hints with family friends who have children of the opposite sex. Maybe try and do a little coordination. um, Certainly giving talks about birds and the bees so that they don't accidentally knock somebody up and then need to commit to the person that they don't really know. Helping them. Maybe they're not, first into the dating. Maybe they're seeing their friends start to date, and you can talk to them about that, with what kind of issues that they're witnessing their friends going through, so that they can kind of avoid the issues. When it comes to relationships, and that the first time I think a lot of people call it falling in love, but it would be ideal if the first time you get that really strong, fluttery feeling, if that was with a person who is worthy of commitment. But sometimes that can come, if you're not in a protected environment and your parents are not good keepers, you might find yourself falling in love for the first time with somebody dysfunctional. So helping your children navigate what is that biological response versus what do they actually want philosophically from their relationship. Those kind of things are all ways you can help your children secure a good relationship. And as I close out, this is something I've done. It's a bit of a philosophical trick that I use for myself, kind of like taking divorce out of the vocabulary. It's just another way to look at marriage and divorce, and that is define marriage as a committed relationship that is lifelong. And if you put that lifelong point in the definition, then it means that divorced people were never married in the first place. If you end the relationship before you die, then logically it wasn't marriage, because marriage will take you to your death. It would also mean that you can't really define yourself as married. You'd have to define yourself as attempting marriage, which is fine. I'm attempting marriage with my wife. It's we won't know if we successfully married until death does us part. But that way, it's an ongoing thing you're striving towards, and not something you are declaring today that you might later undeclare later, right? So yeah, marriage is lifelong. The only way to know if you were married is if death does you part. There is with that mental trick, there is one slight alternative or bastardization of that, and that's you could say that a married person who gets divorced actually remains married, in which case if you get remarried, you are actually a polygamist. So that would be the flip side of that perspective. So if you're not into polygamy, then that could certainly help in your advantage too. But I like to think of it in the way that I said first, and that I am striving to successfully be married to my wife, and it'll be an ongoing commitment. It'll be something we are striving to until death does us part. And just take divorce out of your vocabulary. Anyways, I hope that provided some interesting insight of how you might be screwing up your kids if you get divorced, and encourage you to do some more self-work, self-reflection if you have gone through divorce, because pretty much everyone who goes into a marriage, once it to last until death does them part. That is the ideal, and let's not lie to ourselves. And yeah, I hope that you all have very successful marriages. This is Seventh Generation Warfare. I'm your current host, John Nelson, and this episode was on divorce.